Okay, we are live. Good evening. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. We're going to do question and answers tonight, and I'm joined by my co-host, Miss G, Miss Georgette Truin. How are you, Miss Truin?
I'm good, and you?
Good. And we also have our other co-host, Mr. Darren Guai. Mr. Darren, how are you this evening?
Greetings from Maine, Mr. D. How you doing?
And I see that we have a guest tonight. And her name is Carly. Miss Carly, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are y'all doing?
Good, good, good. Where are you
Fantastic.
coming to us from?
From Melbourne Beach, Florida.
Oh, is that on the Gulf or Atlantic
No,
side?
it's on the East Coast. It's I don't know if you've ever heard of Sebastian Inlet,
No.
but okay, you know where they launched the space shuttle off?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm on the south end of that county where they launched the space shuttle off at.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I just spoke to Carly before the show.
Yes, Miss G and I have had a long conversation on the phone right before this.
Yeah.
How many space shuttles have you seen launched?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. So many where it's like not even. It's like, oh, there goes another one.
Oh,
It's an
Lindsay
everyday.
said that she's glad you got to go on. Lindsay from my show. Lindsay,
Oh yeah, okay. Tell her I said thank you.
she hears you. She's watching right now.
Great to hear it. I appreciate that.
so what's going on with you and CPS on the
Well,
East Coast of Florida?
so I had a dependency case that started back over a year ago, right? And I gotten my reunification closed. They post dated it back to November. That was on April 12th. They were still going to be oversight, until July 12th. But then over the weekend, Memorial Day weekend on the 29th, my 11-year-old daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, my 11-year-old daughter's friend, and my best friend, and he was a male, and we went to the beach, and then we went to a concert afterwards, an all ages concert, and my 11-year-old pretty much just got over dramatic. She had gotten in trouble that day because right when we left the beach to go to the show, she was using vulgar language in the ocean right around some older boys, which is just completely not right, and I took her phone away. She was angry about that. Then she wanted to text her father, so I gave her phone back, and then basically she just got very emotional. I should have right then and there just said, okay, let's go, forget it. But I gave her the benefit of the doubt. We went into the concert. Her and her friend just got more and more weird. As she's texting her father, her phone died. I took the phone, put it in my bag, and then she got on her friend's phone, keeps texting her father. Now this is my ex-husband. She's supposed to be there for the summer. She wanted to go there for the summer. He didn't want her to come. He has this very long history of never, coming through with what he's supposed to do as far as our custody divorce agreement goes, and just not showing up for months at a time. Sometimes he's remarried and has a child with his new wife, and they have 2 other kids as well from 2 other, but that doesn't even matter. So basically what happened is that I had 1 drink while I was at the concert, was not intoxicated. The girls were all worked up. She was texting her father, saying all these outlandish things. She didn't want to be there because she knows how to work him up to get him to, play Captain Save Daddy. Like, I'll save everybody, whatever. Because he likes the drama. He's the person that is a narcissist and he loves drama. Now, and I was doing so well, so anything that he could do to say, oh, well, she's doing bad, I'm going to jump on it, right? And so my daughter knows which buttons to push of his. So her and her friend said they needed to go to the bathroom, separated themselves from my best friend and my younger daughter and I. And we couldn't find them because I could see them at the bathroom, and then I couldn't see them after that. It was a busy outdoor event. I went to go look for them. I found them sitting on the back wall of like, there's like a inside bar area, and they were on the back wall right by the bathroom. And she's still texting her father on her friend's phone at this point. And my friend and I walked up to her with my, my younger daughter. I was holding her, and my older daughter was just losing her mind, just out of control. Worked herself all up. Her friend had worked herself. They both were all worked up. They're just over emotional teenagers. And I'm just thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, when did the pin get pulled out of the grenade, and where was I, and what is going on? Right. And so I'm like, calm down, let's go. And it's really hard to hear. So I'm having to like get close and be like, come on. And she's like, don't touch me. Oh, like acting like she's so afraid. I've never hit that child. Ever. I don't believe in violence like that. Like, I will punish her how I see fit, but I don't hit. But she was acting as if, attracting attention. I remember at that age, I loved attention. I didn't care which way I got it, if it was negative or what, so I was seeing it for what it was, but I did not realize the extent in which she was going to take it to. She then, my best friend, because he thought that she had took her phone back from me out of my bag, and so, but she had her friend's phone, so he grabbed the phone from her, my daughter, and I was like, oh, no, and I grabbed it back. I was like, that's Taylor's phone. He didn't hear me say that. Or sorry, that's her phone. He didn't hear me because it was so loud. And so when I went to give it to her friend, he inadvertently touched the friend's hand while I was handing it back to her, and pulled it back. And I said, no, that's her phone. So he actually heard me that time. And then I handed it back to her. That was the only time I ever saw him touch either of the two girls. That's all. And then Cameron, my daughter, is still acting insane. I don't want to go. I'm like, let's go. She's like, I don't want to go with you. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, and now later I've seen that her father had cooked up this whole drama situation, because I saw the text messages, but only a portion of them. I didn't see the later ones from the friend's phone, but I'm sure they were much more dramatic and crazy. But anyway, so then my best friend, who's known her since she was 4, she's now 11, and has been in her life and been a constant, solid, good male figure, says to her, when I was 11 and if I treated my mother like that, I'd get my ass beat. Literally, that's what he said. And I was like, yeah, and that's what I said. But in the report that the CPI investigator put, he got arrested for simple assault for that. She said that oh God, sorry, I apologize. It's right here. I highlight. Okay, it says he began yelling in her face and saying he was going to punch her. She disclosed that the mother was agreeing with the paramour. No, sorry, that didn't happen. And he was arrested for that, for simple assault, because of that, because it was intent to something, I don't know. And then that was the only time that I ever saw him touch those children. And at that point, I was like, this is insane. Like, let's go, please, let's leave. So they had garnished the attention of, bystanders, of course, because they're acting so just over the top ridiculous. Like, I'm going to hurt them, or he's going to take them somewhere and he's drunk and driving. And no, yes, he had drinks at the show. I had only had one drink. I was perfectly sober and had all my faculties, and I was going to drive home. And he was not going to drive, but it says all through this report that he was trying to grab them and yank them to the car. That's 2 blocks away, mind you. Okay, so that never happened. It's just all these inconsistencies in this report. And then I ended up, so they separated us. The cops ended up, because her father called for a welfare check. They separated us. I first went initially into the office at the venue with the girls, and then they were like, okay, well, we need to separate you for questioning. So then I was taken to the police department, but not before. I was forced for an hour to sit on the side of the road and watch while they basically just attacked my best friend completely unprovoked, because I have it all on video, every single bit of it, because it's another thing in here that says that I tried to intervene by putting my body between the paramour and the corporal to prevent the paramour from being arrested. And I have it all on video. That never happened. Never one time. From the moment of contact all the way to the end when he was completely in the car, they tased him and everything. It was insane. And they forced my 4-year-old to watch it. They wouldn't let me leave. I asked multiple times. You can hear in the video. And so then he gets in the cop car. I go to the police department, and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And this whole contact with the police started at 9, which is when I was planning on leaving anyways. And my child is 4. She needs to be in bed. Like, yeah, it was a special event. She was staying up a little bit later, but this is way back. This is insane. Why are you guys keeping me here? Then the CPI lady shows up, and they said that I was intoxicated. I said, okay, well, can I have a breathalyzer? So one of the officers and the CPI investigator gave me a breathalyzer. I blew 0.03, perfectly fine, right? They didn't put that in the report, but they put in the report multiple times that I was intoxicated and had bloodshot eyes, and I was aggressive and gave inconsistent stories as to what had occurred. And then I was detained and charged with child neglect without great bodily harm, because I don't even know why. It says, because Corporal was able to review the video footage showing Paramour grabbing the child by the arm and yelling in her face while the mother was watching and not taking action to protect the child. And that never happened. Like, I would love to see this video. They didn't show me any of this video. In fact, the guy, that corporal told me that I wasn't there when any of that occurred, but there couldn't have been a point in time where that happened. So I just don't understand. Why did I get arrested? Why did it take them 6 hours? I sat in that police 5 hours, excuse me, station before I was arrested. Why did the CPI lady demonize me? I mean, this gets way worse, what she says in this report. So I go to jail, right? And her father came. That's what she wanted. Her father came and got her. She got the attention. And my youngest daughter, her father is in jail for domestic violence against me because I do not stand for that at all. You will not touch me. You will not abuse my children, because he was being physically, verbally, emotionally abusive towards me, and not physically so much towards the girls, but he did towards my oldest daughter, pick her up and throw her out of a chair. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I had already called CPI 2 weeks prior about this. Showed them all these videos that I had of him, punching me. This is my 4-year-old's father. And they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. No follow-up, no nothing. That was before my reunification hearing. My attorney said to me, I can't believe you would call and have open a CPI investigation right before your reunification hearing. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm trying to get help. Like, isn't this what I'm supposed to do? Like, I need help. This man is not good. And anyways, so I ended up a week later, that incident happened with Cameron, my older daughter, I apologize. And I talked to my therapist about it the very next day, and they're like, go file an injunction. So I went to file the injunction. They changed the place where you file the injunctions. It was now an hour away, so I just went straight to the sheriff's office. I showed them the exact same things that I showed the CPI investigator that came a week and a half prior, and they immediately left the station and went and arrested him for felony domestic battery. And so I don't put up with people abusing my children, ever. And that's not, and none of that holds any water. They just think that I'm some crazy person that's like, oh yeah, and I just, at this point, so now I'm in jail, right? I got booked too late to go to first appearance on Monday. So I had to go to emergency shelter hearing Monday morning because Isla has I keep saying names, I apologize. My youngest daughter had no one to take her in. So my older daughter, I'm assuming, begged her father to take her with them. So that's what happened. And then the next day, I guess they were able to find her her aunt from her dad, like her dad's half sister, to take her in, and that's where she's at now. Still, but then I did end up. They were supposed to have a regular instead of an emergency, but the regular shelter hearing the next day. But IP court, which is initial appearance court, takes precedence over that, so they had to put it on hold. But the judge made her decision that day rather than waiting till I was there in person, because I got what's called pretrial release, which is, unfortunately, I'm on felony bond for something that needs to be amended because they have no evidence and it was a nonsense bogus charge over a year ago. That's kind of why this whole thing started. But I had court anyways Wednesday, so thank God that I had that, because no one told me that there was a dependency hearing or the shelter hearing that day. I just happened to call my attorney, who at the time asked me about the paramour, and she told me that I had court. I'm like, well, thanks. Nobody was going to call me. But then she asked about the paramour, about if he, what his name was, what his birthday was, and everything, to make sure there was no issues, like with representing me further, even though she's been my attorney for over a year in this case. Then she said there wasn't, that they checked out. Then the next day after that, she calls me up and was like, oh, I can't be your attorney anymore because it's a conflict of interest, because my office, not me, my office represents him in a criminal case 7 years ago. So then I'm without an attorney. I go up.
Wait, Carly, but wait,
Yes.
let Mr. Davis also know that that attorney assistant was on the phone when, and she confirmed way before.
Oh yeah, she confirmed it. Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, we've never represented him before. We're good. Yep, that's what she told me. The secretary or whatever, the paralegal, I guess, her paralegal, for my attorney at the time, which was through the Office of Regional Counsel. So now, I go to court and I'm like, I show up and I'm like, what? Can't I say anything? This is all ridiculous. This is not fair. My children are safe with me because they have to prove 3 things, I believe, and they tried everything to make sure the home was safe and they could go back. Did not do that. That there's another one about, I don't know, there's 3 things. The first one, maybe because I got arrested, that could be, but the other 2, no way. They did not do any of that. So I just don't understand why she didn't even try to fight back, because she said that the judge already made her decision. Like, I kept trying to talk to her about things, and she's like, well, let me just tell you that we're not going to be able to do anything right now. You're going to have an evidentiary hearing and wait until you can do that. And then I find out I don't even have her as an attorney anymore. So now I do. I found out today that I did get a new one, but I Googled him, and he only does family law and criminal law. But that's just the ones it's called spin the wheel, and that's who you end up with. So not a dependency attorney. So,
Okay, so
I'm like, what do I do? That's where I'm at.
the evidentiary hearing is the one you asked about today, and remember,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
on
ma'am.
on my show,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's what you wanted Davis to explain to you. That was one of the questions.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
So, Attorney Davis, would you please explain to her what that is?
I'm not sure.
Prepared
I'm,
for?
okay, I'm not sure what the question is. She wants me to explain what.
How do I, okay, so the next step in this process is for me to get at least my 4-year-old back. If my older daughter wants to stay, that's fine for now, but so my attorney said that I had to have an evidentiary hearing where I could present my side of the story, since they took whatever this CPI lady said as the end all be all etched in stone truth, which is not the case. And I have proof that it's not the case. So how do I do that? How do I get this hearing, and what happens at this hearing?
Okay, if it's the jurisdictional hearing, you see, one of the things is, I think Florida is similar to California, but I'm not sure because I've never done a case in Florida. I'm not licensed in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, the way things are set out in California is you have the initial detention hearing. And that's to determine if a child is going to remain with you or remain away from you pending the next court hearing. All right. The next
Right.
court hearing is called the jurisdictional, and then there's the dispositional hearing. And in California, the jurisdictional hearing is to determine simply if the allegations against you are true or false. Ms. G, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Mm-mm.
You,
Can you hear me,
I can
Carla?
hear you. Yes, I can hear you. I'm
Darren,
good.
can you hear me, Darren?
Yes, sir.
Miss G, you can't hear me?
Miss G's frozen tonight.
Oh
No,
yeah, she is.
she's
Oh no,
moving
she's not.
around.
No,
Can you hear us?
hold on.
Oh, guess not.
Don't you love technology?
Okay. I never mind. There's a button on the keyboard that mutes everything, and I didn't know that. But I
Well, now
wasn't
you know.
on the show, which is weird. But anyways, it was the main volume, but you don't want to hear all that. That's kind of boring. But right. So go on.
So the jurisdictional hearing is to decide whether the facts or allegations against you are true or partially true. If the facts and the allegations are found to be not true, the case is dismissed and you immediately get your child back. If the facts are true, you get to have a dispositional hearing. And at the dispositional hearing, at least in California, the CPS must prove by clear and convincing evidence that you're a substantial danger and
Mm-hmm.
there's no less restrictive alternatives. So even if the allegations are true, you could win the dispositional hearing and get your child back. I've always called the dispositional hearing the most important hearing, in the juvenile dependency process. So I don't know how Florida sets it up. I will tell you
I
a quick.
believe it's a little different
Okay.
because she said that I had to put in a motion for an evidentiary hearing to prove my case.
Well, I don't know what type of motion, if it's written or oral, but in California, you just tell the judge, hey, we want a trial.
Right. I'm not sure either how that works here, even though I just went through this over a year ago now. But it was a little foggy back then. It was, and I got a case plan. I completed it like in record time and did everything and more but that was for myself as well. I have over a year clean and sober. This time and they took my kids and I went a little off the rails and it's sad but I'm a survivor and I'm like I told Miss G earlier, this only makes my windshield bigger and my rearview mirror smaller because I'm not going backwards or looking back. I'm going forwards and that's it. Everybody's expecting me to fail. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm doing what I need to do for me and for my children 100%. Like relapse is not an option. It's not even in my scope of thinking. So
She said she's been clean for
13 months.
15 or
13.
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but the police didn't do they didn't give her a breathalyzer.
Oh no, they did. They did give me yeah, but they didn't put it in. They said that I was intoxicated, gave me a breathalyzer, proving that I was not intoxicated, but still wrote in the report that I was intoxicated.
But they said that they have body cams, and she wants she wants to.
I want the footage. Because the CPI investigator was standing right next to the deputy who gave me the breathalyzer, and all three of us saw exactly what it said, and they went like that. That's all they said. And I was like, okay, I told you I wasn't drunk.
So
Like, doesn't that hold weight, right?
That should hold weight in court, Mr. Davis, or?
Well, I was telling somebody this today. Everything that you say has weight. But on a scale of 1 to 10, is it a 1?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it a 10? Or is it a 5?
Mm.
See, everyone, looks at the case from their own perspective. When I was at the Spence Trial Lawyers College, one of the things that I learned was you can't look at a case from your perspective because you're not making the decision, right? So why look
Right.
at it from your perspective? That means nothing. You have to look at it from the perspective of the judge who's making the decision, or the jury, the fact finder. And
Mhm.
I think your state is like California. You don't have juries in CPS cases. So you have a jury of one, is what Jerry Spence would say.
Correct.
Okay. Now, figure out how this judge is going to look at your case and then prepare a defense.
Okay.
See, talking to you now, I can tell that you're looking, or you're analyzing this case from the perspective of Carly.
Right. Okay.
Guess what? But guess what? Carly doesn't make the decision.
You're absolutely right, unfortunately.
And, I don't want to sound like a lawyer, but what Carly thinks may not even be relevant.
Right.
Mhm.
So, I would sit down, what I would do, and this is going to take you a few hours, but if you really want to win the case, this is what you should do. You should type out your story, double space, 14-point font. Look at it a few times and give it to your attorney.
Okay.
And all the important parts, you should write down the witnesses and documents that tend to prove your point of view and disprove the other point of view. For
Mhm.
example, one of the things that you mentioned was the body cam.
Mhm.
In this particular situation, that's going to be extremely relevant, in my opinion, based on what you said.
Yes, sir.
Now, body cams just don't get to court and show up.
Right.
Okay. So you have to subpoena them. Sometimes the police make a motion to quash the subpoena, and you have to oppose that motion. You have to get the camera. In California, you can't play any video unless it's transcribed. You got to get it transcribed. And then you got to figure out a way how to play the video for the judge at the trial. Videos just don't play themselves. You're
Right.
sitting there usually with a CD-ROM or a little disc with your
Mhm.
video on this disc. Now what?
Right.
How are you gonna show the judge? How are you gonna show the other attorneys at the same time? You
Mhm.
know, is there a big screen?
Have to come prepared, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Okay, so just saying I'm gonna get the videotape. That's about
I understand, and I'm just saying, like, I know all the layers. I do understand that, from a
so
standpoint.
that's where you have to work with an attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the whole thing about evidence, I've told this story before, but listen to this. Guy comes to me on a Saturday morning without an appointment, just walks in the office. And he says to me, Mr. Davis, I want you to get custody of my daughter. And at first I'm thinking, okay, this might be a little smooth sailing. And then he tells me, I say, when's the last time you've been to court? Yesterday. And I went to court and the judge gave me 1 hour visit every Saturday. And I want custody. All right. And he said the judge was corrupt. And I said, well, why was the judge corrupt? He says, the judge ruled against me and wouldn't look at my evidence. I said, what evidence? He said, I had these papers from the school and these papers, from the doctor. And if you read them, you'll come to the conclusion that I came to, what I came to, being the father,
Mhm.
that I should have custody.
Mhm.
Right.
And then I explained to him, I said, well, if the judge didn't look at your documents, the judge made the right decision. And he said, why is that? I said, because you didn't bring in the documents into evidence under the California Evidence Code. He says, but these really are the documents. I said, well, the judge doesn't know that. And
Right. He could have made him up or whatever.
as you sit here and show me, I don't know that they're the truth documents, but they are, Mr. Davis, they are. But there's rules about business records. There are rules about hearsay. If you don't comply with those rules, judge is not going to look at your evidence. And here's the really sad thing. A lot of people believe that just because they know they're right, that they're going to win in court. And that's not true.
I know firsthand.
It's not true. So my point is, get with your lawyer. Give
Can
him
I
the
ask you?
story. Come up with a strategy. Subpoena
Yes, sir.
your witnesses and your documents. Bring in the court. Put them on the stand. Make them testify.
Okay.
Right?
I'm
Okay,
just
good.
concerned because this attorney that they've given me from this spin the wheel thing has no dependency experience. So I'm gonna have to do all the legwork for him and make sure that it's all on point. T's crossed, I's dotted in the dependency realm. He's a family law attorney, it says, and a criminal law attorney, but it says nothing about dependency
Why
anyway.
don't you call him up and ask him if he has any dependency experience?
I've tried all day. I only found out he was my attorney today, so I called multiple times, but he was in meetings all day, and then his paralegal called me back at the very end of the day, right when I was on a video chat with my 4-year-old, and I was not gonna drop that call. That was,
Well,
and my baby.
here's the other thing. I'm trying to say this politically correct. And I think I'm going to shock Darren and Georgette. The attorney that you have, generally in this country, you get what you pay for.
I understand.
So if you're concerned about your attorney, you might want to start calling around and, talking to other attorneys in your area about taking over your case. Here's the example I give all the time. All the time. Social worker comes into your house, makes her way to your back bedroom, to your closet, to your secret hiding place in that closet, and she finds your $10 million in cash. She puts it on her shoulder and walks out the door. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to call Johnny Cochran if he were still alive. You're going to get the best lawyer you can get for your $10 million. My question is, why don't you do that for your kid? Your kid's at least worth $10 million, right?
Oh, it's priceless. It's just the fact of I don't know how. I mean, you're right. Where there's a will, there is a way.
And here's the other thing. And I don't know if Miss G used to think this, but I got the feeling she used to think this. I don't think she thinks this anymore. You know what most people think when they get their court-appointed attorney? They think that they're entitled to have Johnny Cochran or a lawyer as good as Johnny Cochran.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's not even legally true.
I never thought that.
Okay? It's not
I'm
even
against them from day one.
It's not even legally true. Legally, in California at least, you're not entitled to someone of Johnny Cochran's qualifications and experience. You're not. And that's just the law. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but all attorneys aren't the same. But for court-appointed purposes, you get a warm body with a license. Now,
that's all that matters to them, right?
Yeah. If they're Johnny Cochran,
they're not going to have him.
You got lucky.
He won the lottery, right?
Right. But if it's, first-year lawyer out of law school who's never done a juvenile dependency case, he's got a license and he's a warm body.
Well, I did look him up on quite a few different attorney review sites, and he does have extremely fantastic reviews, and a lot of them over a long period of time. But he doesn't have dependency. That's all I think I did not see. So
well, you might want to ask
right
his you might want to look up his website, because I'm going to tell you something.
Mm.
There's an old notion that dependency is a cross between family law and criminal law. So in a lot of cases, that attorney may have dependency experience, but in a lot of cases, that attorney may know nothing about dependency. You just don't know. You
Right.
just don't know.
Right.
Okay. So that's why I say call him or call his office, find
Yes,
out
sir.
if he's
I've been.
experienced. And if you've got any hesitation, guess what? It's
Move
your
along.
child. It's your
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You better go find Johnny Cochran on the Florida coast there someplace,
Yes, sir.
because
I hear you.
this is going to be the most important case trial you've ever been involved with in your life. You ever will be involved with. And for you to say, I got a court-appointed attorney that has no dependency experience, and accept that,
No,
what's that about?
no, I'm not accepting that. I
Okay.
just don't, like you said, I have to ask him specifically, you know what I mean? And I tried to do that today. I've been on top of I've been on top of it since this happened. I've been on the phone calling and trying to figure out anything that I could do. What do I need to do? I found you guys, I mean, granted, like Miss G told me, why do you guys wait to figure this out until something happens? And I agree with her 100% of the time. I mean, I agree with her, but unfortunately, when you're working and you have kids and you're not thinking there's some crazy, terrible things going to happen, then you need to have all of this knowledge, even though I should have, because I thought I was good. I was out. I got my reunification. I got it post dated back to November. I got glorifying recommendations from the GAL, from my case manager, and Miss G told me they're not your friends. Don't think they're your friends, even though they gave you all these fancy, wonderful things they had to say about me and all this. And but that's the thing that just so disheartening about this system and how backwards it is because they know this. They know how great that I've been doing. They know that I'm 100% for those kids 100% of the time. And I talked to her therapist and my therapist
Carly,
yesterday, and they're going to write letters. Sorry, go ahead.
Carly, stop looking at the case from your point of view.
You're right.
You're gonna lose. Okay.
Mhm.
Now I've warned you. And if you still
All right,
want
I'm
to
going to
do
write that down.
it, if
You
you
don't
still
have
want
to.
to do it,
You're gonna watch it on the show.
God bless you.
But
It's such a mindset that people can't get into, what they actually need to do and how they need to analyze their situation. I
So
talked
then
to a
what
woman.
should I do? Will you tell me?
I talked to a woman today. I've talked to her probably 3 or 4 times. And God bless her. She wants to. This is the question she always asks me. Why doesn't someone do something to these lying social workers? And finally I said to her, well, what do you want me to do? She says, well, can't you take them on and fight them? Well, yes. Can't you change the law? No. Can you sue them? Well, yeah. She says, well, why aren't you doing it? And my response was, well, in the last 4 months, I've talked to you a few times. You haven't hired me. And you specifically told me you didn't want to hire me because you've already spent thousands of dollars on other attorneys. And I'm okay with that. But don't think I'm going to jump up. And she was out of state, right? I don't think I'm going to jump up and run to Wyoming and do your case. Round trip is almost $1,000.
Yeah.
It's not like you're down the street and around the corner or down the freeway here in LA. You're in freaking Wyoming.
I do have a very good connection on somebody with Diamond Delta member status that can get free airfare for you. Well, not free, but with the points. Round trip to Florida, back to California. I just need to know about the rest of the cost.
Lindsay,
Next week, Lindsay, next week I'm going to Carly. I mean, next week I'm going to up north in
Carly.
California.
I'm gonna say Lindsay. Lindsay's
You're
right.
going there?
And Lindsay, I'm going to do a trial that's about 4 hours away from LA, 4 or 5 hours. And when it was first set, scheduled, I text the client. I said, "Hey, we got to get the funds to fly there,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be overnight. I'll need a hotel room, and
Right.
stuff like that. Transportation from the airport, transportation back to the airport.
Mhm.
And they started thinking, well, this is actually going to cost money. Yeah, yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Just to
Yes.
get me there, and the hotel I think was like almost $1,000, a little over 1,000 actually.
You
For
don't
one
have to
night?
stay at the 5-star.
Right. I was like, where are you staying for one night?
It's not a 5-star. It's not a 5-star hotel.
Okay.
Wow.
Everything went up. Everything went up.
Yeah, inflation.
The
It's
Roach
the
Hotel
thing.
now is $600 a night. Yeah. Yeah. So
Well, it's not that much here, and it's gorgeous.
Well,
You might see.
I think right after COVID, I flew to Fort Lauderdale, and I couldn't
Mhm.
believe how cheap it was.
Yeah.
LA to Fort Lauderdale was like maybe $250.
Wow.
I mean, really cheap. But if you fly to like New Orleans, that's like a $600 round trip.
Mhm.
So it just depends on where you're flying to and how much it costs.
Right.
You know.
But I mean, I just need to know. I'm going to stop looking at this from my point of view, pull myself out of it, because I can do that. I can do that as long as I just consciously stay in that state of mind and try
You,
to
you
take
know,
the emotions out.
you know what somebody asked me to do the other day,
What?
and when they first mentioned it, I didn't think it was a good idea. But now talking to you, I think this might be a good idea. They asked me to do a coaching group that not only told you or would tell you how to do a case, but how to do mindset,
Mm-hmm.
because attorneys talk to people in these cases, and sometimes we assume you know what the law is, or you know how to prove a case, or you know the mindset that you need to have. And I find myself so many times explaining to people what's going on just procedurally in a case,
Mm-hmm.
not even the substantive law. I the other day I was explaining to someone, and at first in my mind I thought, what a crazy question. But then I started thinking, well, this person isn't a lawyer. She wouldn't know, what the judge is actually talking about or scheduling or or doing.
mhm.
And she immediately thought that the judge was being crooked, and the judge wasn't being crooked. Judge was doing something that most people don't know about.
Right.
So
Really, what's that?
scheduling, s- going day to day, just scheduling a case. Let me give you an
That
example.
seems a really odd distinction to think that that was corrupt.
Well, because the client thought that she was entitled to have a trial immediately, and that it would go day to day until finished.
Oh, yeah. Well, no.
The judge had to look at the calendar.
Right.
Guess what? There's like 1,000 other cases they're doing, not
Yep.
just your case. So the client was very upset that she didn't get a date immediately. A lot in a lot of counties, they have small juvenile dependency departments, meaning
Mm-hmm.
they have very few judges that do
One
dependent.
judge.
Okay, so you get it, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
even in a county as large as LA, there's 10 to 12 million people here. They have two courthouses that do juvenile dependency. One has maybe 20 or 25 judges in it, and the other one has like 4 or 5. I forget the exact numbers. But even with that many judges doing nothing but dependency, They have like 30 cases a day, 35 cases a day.
See, how can they even be in their sound mind to make a clear decision? Because they're just looking at something so fast. Like that's how I feel what happened with my case. I feel as if she thought she saw 2 charges of child neglect and thought they were for my 2 daughters, not my older daughter and her friend.
Okay,
You
but
know?
that's a valid concern if you're
Right.
looking at it from Carly's point of view.
Well, I'm from any point of view, I know that
Well,
they're
not from the
fast.
judge,
They're going through those
not from
so
the judge's,
fast, right?
not from the judge's point of view.
You think the judge sits there and reads everything and go and,
Oh,
and sits and mulls over it and like
I don't
really
know.
gets into it?
I don't know. I'm not a judge. I don't know. I do know a judge, and she has told me she reads everything.
Yeah. Well, some people are different. Some people
Yeah.
care. Some people actually, yeah, absolutely. Everybody's, their own person, of course. So
The funny thing is sometimes I'll be doing a case, and I'm thinking, did this judge really review this report or these reports?
Mm-hmm.
And then they ask a question or say something that leads me
Very
to believe,
specific. Yeah.
yeah, like, oh my God, they actually did read the reports. So you never know. I mean, you have to assume that they do, or that someone brings it out into evidence. But
Right.
looking at the case from your point of view,
So if I was her and I read this CPI report, I would make the same decision that she did make, 110%.
right?
I
And you know
would.
what,
I would.
Miss G, listen to this, Darren. I want you to listen to this.
I'm
Did you
listening.
hear what? Did you hear what she just said? Say it
Yeah.
again. Say it again, Charlie.
I said if I was the judge and I read this report from this CPI investigator and that is all I had to go on, I would make the same exact decision that she did.
Correct.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
in order for you to win, you have to bring in, and your attorney has to bring in, relevant, competent evidence to show that that report is incorrect.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now,
A lot of people,
what does that look? What are the meat and potatoes of that besides what I've mentioned, like already?
the meat and potatoes are human beings getting up on the witness stand, being sworn in, and testifying.
That were there actually physically during this time, because I don't know the people that were there. It was just
Okay.
a bunch of random people.
Okay, you have the video on the cops.
Yes, and they say there was also video from the venue, like
Okay. Well,
cameras there.
I'd be talking to my attorney about getting that. I'd be talking to my attorney about subpoenaing in the witnesses.
Yep, and have the paramour.
But I'm in a case involved right now, and you can always focus on red herrings, which are
Right.
actually red herrings. And I told someone recently, I said the case isn't about what the cop did, right? The case is about what you did. And if you can get on the stand and testify, and the judge finds you credible, just your testimony can win the case.
Mm-hmm.
Testimony of the child, testimony of the alleged abuser. So look close to you at the witnesses that are around you. Don't think you're going to find that smoking gun witness, some cop's going to come in and save the day. That rarely happens.
Yeah, I'm not living in a pipe dream or anything like that. I'm trying to be very realistic and logical about this, and I appreciate you telling me to stop thinking about it from my point of view, because you're absolutely right, and it has already made me start my wheels turning in different ways that I could help the case.
Right.
And I need to desperately.
If you look at the case from your perspective, the odds are that you're going to lose, and then you're going to cry
Right.
about it and say
Too much emotion, right? Too much and you're too close to. It's like
right.
Gets cloudy and convoluted.
And you're going to claim
Nice
corruption, but as you sit there, you're not going to have your child.
Right. No,
I tell this to Miss G all the time. look, we're not focused on being right. We're focused on winning, getting the kid. Now,
Yeah.
which do you want? Because you can't have both,
I just want my baby.
right? Well,
Mhm.
focus on winning. Talk to your attorney,
So-
and if that's the best attorney that you can get, work with him or her. Do not
Why are
try
you?
to. Why do not represent yourself?
No, I'm not planning. No, I know better than to do that. I'm not. No way. Because I don't know the legal. I can't file motions like that. I can't. I was scared that I was going to have to because I didn't know how long that I was going to have to not have an attorney once she was saying that it was a conflict of interest and she had to recuse herself after a whole year of being my attorney. But luckily, she got it done fast because I did. I was calling that office every hour. Hey, did you figure it out? Did you figure it out? I need that attorney. I need it. So yeah, she did make it happen, and
Mhm.
I'm just going to. What questions can I ask this attorney that will help me figure out if he is a good fit for the dependency or not? Just flat out that. Have you done dependency? How many dependencies have you done? That's it?
Well, let me back up for a second.
Okay.
Let's say he's the worst attorney in the world.
Okay.
Do you have the resources to go hire an attorney?
Um, possibly.
Yes, she
If I
does.
need, if I need to, I will figure it out.
Okay.
No matter what.
Then in that case, you ask the attorney, "Hey, do you have experience in juvenile dependency matters?" And if
Mhm.
or she says yes, well, how many juvenile dependency cases have you done?
Okay.
Right? In California, for court-appointed attorneys, they have, and some people think this applies to private attorneys when it really doesn't. But when's the last time you took a continuing education course on juvenile
Right.
dependency law? Right?
Just like
How many,
teachers have to, right?
right. How many actual juvenile dependency trials have you done? So
Okay.
those are the three or four big questions,
Got it.
and remember this, looking at it from his perspective, he might be a little off put by those types of questions. So you might not want to just blurt them out like I've just told you, right? You might have to try to
Finesse the situation.
exactly.
Yes, I can do that.
All right. So we
Absolutely.
we are moving. Wow, we're way past the ending of the show.
Oh,
It doesn't feel like we've talked about a lot. So
I know.
let me give Miss G the stage. Do you have any questions or comments, Miss G?
Oh, yeah, I've been waiting. It's been a while. Okay, so Lindsay, I mean
Carly.
Carly, Lindsay's on my mind. I am so
I
sorry.
know.
I know. Okay, all right. So you mentioned at the beginning on the show that that attorney had great reviews, right? With the, that. When social workers attack, they attack the good attorneys. They don't attack the ones that they want people to trust, right? Oftentimes, when you see bad reviews, it's often from social workers trying to discourage people from hiring that particular attorney
Mhm.
because he or she win
Mhm.
cases for the department,
Mhm.
and they want to
Yeah.
sabotage every chance. So they pretend to be clients. They pretend to be somebody who inquired. They pretend, and then they, complain, blah 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 blah. Right now, that's number
Yes.
one. So the ones that have high ratings all the time, that I question. Number two,
Okay.
the reason they don't hire a qualified attorney that understands jurisdiction laws of the state and county and all that crap, right? Now, is because they want them to be their little puppet. Their little puppet, They don't want them to have a voice. Because if they have a voice for their clients, then how are they going to make money? How are the state and the county going to make money? Because a house divided against itself is not going to stand, right?
Right.
When they're
Yep.
divided against themselves, it's not going to remain a house. It's going to fall. They can't do that. They can't afford that. They have bills to pay. That they're not looking at the best interest of the children. They're looking at the best
No.
interest of their pockets, right?
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
the court-appointed attorneys don't work for you because they don't get paid by you. So they don't offer you services. Remember, when you pay for an attorney, they offer you services. When you don't
Right.
pay for a court-appointed attorney, they
Right.
offer state services because they get paid by them.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think
So
this instance, because it's like through he is a private attorney that is doing his whatever
contract
pro
with the
bono
state. Okay,
that he's
yes. He's
required to do
contracted with the state.
yearly.
But let me
Mhm.
finish, okay? Then you can
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
now that's number one, the court appointed attorneys, okay?
Hmm.
Number two, when you hire an attorney that understands your case, it's a lot better for you and your children. Now, the teenager has her mindset already.
Right.
Your mom and dad might think, I know we didn't talk about your parents, but your parents might think, you know what, the system works. System doesn't work. I need your parents, if they're watching, I'm hoping they understand that. So, right now, the teenager prefers to be with her dad. She's going to learn. She's going to learn. Mr. Davis already and I talked about these things. However, the 4-year-old right now is the one that's in limbo. Okay?
Right.
That's the one we're focused on as well. So
Yes.
your parents together, they need to understand the state and the county, the state are not really for the best interest of the children. Because the abused children out there, guess what? They're staying with the abusers. CPS doesn't take them. They focus on the children who are better, who are healthier, who, are adoptable, basically. And your 4-year old is adoptable. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that a social worker will pretend to be nice. A social worker will pretend to be on your side, but that's far from the truth because they are actors. They all know what to say and what to do, but they want you to trust them, right? So they can keep you so you can help them, and that's all it is. Then you're going to see their true colors. So when I tell you guys you're working with a sociopath doesn't tell you he or she is a sociopath. They don't have a sign on their head saying I'm a sociopath, right? So you're working with a corrupt system that has a strong name that most Americans don't understand. That name is actually not for the best interest of the children. So I'm hoping your parents can keep that in mind because that is very important to understand. That's why Attorney Davis is asked to go to a lot of different places in the United States. A lot of people call him from the United States. And believe me, Canada too.
I
Okay?
believe it.
Canada. Oh yeah, Canada. And it was Canada and the United Kingdom and one state was actually Africa. And I
Oh
was
wow.
laughing. I asked that was last year. And I asked Davis, I said, is that true? Can you go to Africa? You but what I'm saying is it's a lot of money, right? So, but the point is that I'm trying to get across to the relatives, to the grandparents out there, you need to understand that your grandkids is at stake. That's it.
Right.
You will know there is no reunification. I want your parents to hear this because, and I don't want to be right in this, but 100% of the time I am right. They will say Miss G was right because they're gonna say reunification, and guess what? There is no reunification. You get it now? There is no such thing. Where's the
Yeah.
reunification? Oh, well, you're gonna have reunification. Don't worry, it's gonna happen. And then guess what? Your TPR is gonna be coming next because they're
Yeah.
going to terminate reunifications. Then they're gonna focus on TPR. If the
Mhm.
child is placed with a family member, then they're gonna come up with all excuses to remove that child from the family and put that child in a home, adoptive home or a foster home. And the longer the child is in that home, the more money they're going to make from the federal government.
Mhm.
You guys understand? Do you understand what I'm saying, Carly? Because
I fully understand, and it's scary to me.
right, oftentimes parents don't understand that. I know your parents can help you. I know that because a lot of parents, grandparents, they always call me and say, Miss G, our daughter or our son had that listen to your show, and I regretted not hiring you guys. I
Right.
kid you not, as God is my witness, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
I get that a
And
lot.
as I was telling you earlier, like this, they know that I am have my wits about me, that I'm sober, that I was doing everything right. They know I'm sorry, my older daughter, how she's been acting, her emotions, how she wants to go with her dad. They know all of it.
Her
My
dad,
dad
her
said it,
dad,
I'm not even surprised.
her dad did this. Her dad did this,
Oh
and
yeah,
his
100%.
girlfriend or his wife also is a part of this. And all
Yep.
it is to stop paying you any type of money, and that's his way of, hey, let the new wife take care of her, whatever she's dealing with. But
Hmm.
it's all temporary, and your daughter doesn't see this now, but there will come a time that she will see.
I
She
know.
will see, believe me. So just focus on the 4-year old, and I hope to God that your family can understand that. And you guys don't let CPS divide you apart, because that's all they count on, because they're gonna go tell your family lies about you that is not true. And because of your past,
Right. The scarlet letter, I'm telling you, it's
they're going to believe what the social workers said because they think it's a government entity, but what they don't understand, the government is screwed up. Okay? They're screwed up.
I think they're starting to realize that,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
Oh,
because
wait.
of, yes, sir.
No. I wanted to
Oh,
jump in because I Miss G likes to go on and on. We could turn this into a 2-hour show, but I want to
I
get
think
to
that's
Mr.
great.
Guai. Mr. Darren, did you have any comments or questions?
Uh, you know what? I mean, you can either answer this now, Mr. Davis. This is more directed at you than anything. I just kind of wanted. We talk about this all the time in the process and everything. Um, but for California, just for instance, I would just like to know, like, what is the breakdown? Because we talk all the time about like where everybody is at their case, and like I said, Maine's is different than yours. And but what in California, what's the standard? How does this work down? So from start to finish, what are the names and the procedures? Or you can carry this on for another time if you wanted to be late. Because I don't know if that's too in depth of a question.
I don't. Well, first of all, Darren, I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
So starting from the very first case, when you go to court with the CPS thing, like we'll always be like, where are you at? What are you at? You'll say, oh, maybe you're at the jurisdiction trial, or maybe you're at this. So what's the list? How does it go down? Like the
Okay,
list of
let
what
me
the
let me
hearings
tell
are.
you the list. And Miss G, please send Carly a copy of my book.
Yes, please.
All right.
And what is the book? Like I kind of briefly heard about it earlier. It's like a deep, like how to be your own lawyer, kind of a guideline. No, I was wrong.
Oh, it's a secret. It's the secret.
The Secret. Okay,
Yeah.
I've read that book.
It's the
But
secret.
not intended for you to do your own case, though. Okay.
It's
But it
called the.
assists you, right?
It's the secret. How to fight CPS and win.
Okay, I
That's the
want
name
that.
of the. That's the name of this show. That
Yes.
that title came from the book that I wrote. But
Okay.
let me answer Darren's question.
Sure.
Number one is the detention hearing. Number two is the jurisdictional hearing. Number three is the dispositional hearing. Number four is what they call the 364 hearing, first 6 month review. And if the child's in foster care, it's called a 366.21E hearing in California. The 12-month hearing is called the 366.21F hearing.
You have that in your
There,
book.
there may be further hearings depending on the circumstances in the case. There may be an 18-month hearing. And there is even a provision for a 24-month hearing. You rarely hear about the 24-month hearing, and the 18-month hearing is not as popular as one might think. After these 6-month review hearings, the court can terminate the family reunification services and set the case for what's called a selection and implementation hearing under 366.26, and that's the death penalty
Right.
for parents, and that is where they will try to terminate your parental rights. In a lot of cases, the kid is with some strange foster parent, and the foster parents adopt the child, and then you never see the child again. So that's the rundown. That's like the 30,000-foot view. Believe me, in each of those hearings, there's a lot to talk about and discuss and to strategize about. But overall, that's the general outline, so to speak. I talk a little bit more about these things in my book. The book was written not for lawyers, it was written for parents and for relatives. So you can get it on Amazon, or you can get it for free. Miss G will have someone at the office send you a free copy, or Miss G will send you a digital copy where you can actually just read it on your phone.
Or on audio, both.
Or yeah,
I like books, like, and maybe I'm call me old school, but I like the
Honey,
physical.
just get both. Okay.
Either way, yeah,
I'll
I'm
send
happy.
both. I want you to share it with your parents as well. I need you to share
Yes,
it with
ma'am.
people.
And I did just look up the what he asked about in Florida, and it's what we just had, what I just went through, and then an arraignment hearing, which is about the allegations.
Yeah, that
So
in California they call that the arraignment detention hearing,
Attention.
and nowadays most people just call it the detention hearing. But
okay,
in
so
the
was
old,
that
in
go
the
ahead?
old days they used to call it the arraignment detention hearing. That's very interesting that you mentioned that, because
Yeah,
I talk to attorneys these days, and I say arraignment hearing, and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" And then I know, okay, well, this person doesn't go way back, 25 years.
right.
But Darren, I hope that explains it. Now I'm going to tell you a little secret, Darren, and I don't know if Maine has this. The whole flow chart that I just gave you, and in greater detail, can be found on most California county websites, court websites, that has this big flow chart that explains how things go in these different hearings. And it's with a little bit more explanation than what I gave you. Not as much as my book, but it's an interesting flow chart to have and to look at. So you may want to go to Maine, your trial court's website, look up juvenile dependency, that department, and you might be surprised. There might, somebody might have put a flow chart on there. You can also
Yeah.
go into, I also heard and have seen useful things if you're on social media at Reddit. Are you ever on Reddit?
Yes. Oh, yes. I love Reddit.
So if you do research or ask questions on Reddit, you get some really good responses, some really good answers. That's kind of the intellectual
I'm
social
gonna can
media.
I use can I share a link with them? It's right here. I got it online, so I'm gonna share a link for them to look at. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you're very welcome.
Now
And
Darren's in Maine, we're in California, and Carly's in Florida. So which one are you sharing?
I'm sharing California. You were talking about California,
Okay.
so I'm sharing California, and I going to share it with everybody. Hold on. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
So
So if you look in the comments for whatever platform you're watching on us tonight,
Mhm.
we're on 8 different platforms. Miss G just shared the link for California, the do-it-yourself, or not do-it-yourself, the Juvenile Dependency Court and You PDF. And if that's the one I
Well,
was
if
thinking about, it's a great flow chart to give you an overall view of what's going on. Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
here it's now telling me after the arraignment, if I deny the allegations, then I have an adjudicatory hearing, and that's where witnesses may be called to testify about allegations in the case.
yeah.
So
They
it's
used
all those steps.
California used to call it the adjudication, and when I mention that to people now, they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? But it's now called in California the jurisdictional hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
So we were kind of talking about the same thing earlier
Yeah.
when you were mentioning it. So I
Yeah.
understand now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
All
for
right, folks,
clarifying.
we're way past the time. I want to thank you, Miss Carly, for joining us from Florida,
I'm very grateful.
sharing your story and your insights. And Miss G and Mr. Darren, thank you for being a co-host tonight. As you know, on the weekends, we're on at 9:30 a.m. in the morning. So I hope to see you both tomorrow morning, and we'll do this all over again. Miss G,
Don't forget to watch the 8 o'clock. Well, it's supposed to be 8 o'clock prayer show right after this.
oh yeah, right after this show, there's going to be another show on our platform. It's Miss G's prayer show, and I've been getting good reviews from that. People getting a lot of inspiration from your prayer show, Miss G.
Tonight is going to be very special. Actually, I want you guys to watch. I hope you guys
Okay.
can watch.
All
I
right.
hope
Well,
you can watch Luke, Carly.
What? I will watch for you.
all righty. Good
All
night,
right.
you guys.
Thank you
And
so much.
Darren and Miss G, I hope to see you tomorrow at 9:30.
I will
Okay.
see you. I'll be there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
And Grace, our producer, I'll see you tomorrow at 9:30. Good night.
Good night.